With England on the verge of victory at Headingley, it's time for Ask George.
That's a bold thing to say. Hey?
Thank you.
How long have you been watching England? I mean, it just seems quite bold.
I don't know. It's a Sunday. I'm feeling optimistic. I don't know why.
Well, and you're right. Look, you're right. It does feel like that. But actually, in history, how many times have sides chased down almost 300 to win? I mean, it's happened in England something like 6 times in history. And we're presuming it's going to happen. Well, I think it will. I mean, how often have we seen sides chase 250 3 times in a row? I suspect never. I don't know that, but I suspect it's never happened before. And such is this confidence in English cricket that we're presuming it's going to happen. These are amazing times.
Right, well, the first question today comes from PL. He asks, is Dom Sibley, a defensive player, unlikely to get a look in under Bazball?
Oh, interesting. I actually got the impression they were quite keen on him ahead of the series. So I don't think they're going to be as tied and rigid as that. They might want him to keep developing his game. And he is. But the big problem he has at the moment is he hasn't scored enough runs. He looks quite good as it happens, but he hasn't scored enough runs. I think he's only scored 100. So I wouldn't rule him out. But they're very keen on Zach Crawley, and they're going to give him more chance.
And Sahil and Matthew Oliver also look to England's batting. They both ask, who should open with Alex Lees against India, with Sahil suggesting Harry Brook?
Well, that's an interesting one. I'm thinking Harry Brook was an opener at youth level, but he has scored his runs for Yorkshire this season at 5, 6 and 7. Even. I think he got 100 at 7 because there was a night watchman in. So I think that would be asking a lot of him. I don't think it's a great plan, personally. I think it's a specialist position. I also think they're going to stick with Zach Crawley. I think they really like him. And I think the only time they drop him is if they are fearing that continued exposure to failure is going to damage his long-term prospects. And I don't know whether we're there yet. But there are other people who can do the job. You know, I like Sam Robson, always have done. I think he's a good all-round player. I just go back to that first question. You know, Lees was a fairly dour defensive player and is trying to develop. I wouldn't rule out Sibley. He's not just a defensive player either. He got a bit stuck towards the end of his test, his first stint in the side. And he sort of lost his strengths and developed some weaknesses. But he's a bit better than that. So I definitely wouldn't rule him out. Personally, I don't think Brook's the way to go. Maybe if Folks has done well, there's a way for Brook to come in the order.
Yeah, I think someone did actually ask that on Twitter. What happens if Folks isn't available for the India game? Do they go Billings and Brook and try and squeeze both of them in somehow?
I would go best though, and keep it pretty simple. And I think that's what they could do as well. I think they're just going to. I mean, Johnny has hurt his hand for this game as well, just to complicate things. So who knows? But in the unlikely event that Ben Folks isn't well enough, I would expect them to go best though, and then allow Brooks to come in as a specialist batter, and that might, quite useful thing to do anyway.
Sushant also sticks with the idea of England's openers. He asks, shouldn't England go for horses for courses openers? He suggests Hamid and Burns in England, Sibley and Crawley in Australia, and Jennings and Hamid in the subcontinent.
I don't really agree. I don't think there's that sort of clear distinction between surface. Surface has changed during the period during a game. This one's changed quite a lot. So I don't think that's a great idea, but I take the point that people have different skills. Noted. I think also people want some continuity. They want to grow into their roles. They want to feel comfortable. And, just been talking to Jack Leach, and there's so much confidence in him because of the way his captain has made him feel part of the side. The way that Ben Stokes has absolutely been adamant that he wanted Leach. He's brought him into the attack early, and he's kept Fields up despite people hitting for sixes or whatever. And it makes you feel, more confident, and when you feel more confident, you generally perform better. So I don't think that that would work, having that sort of chopping and changing, but I take the point.
Well, speaking of Jack Leach, John Caswell asks, when does Jack Leach get a stand at Headingley named after him?
They're quite reluctant to name stands at Headingley after people, aren't they? Is it Philip Weston Terrace? I suspect it isn't. Yeah, it'd be very unusual to do that, wouldn't it? Bearing in mind all the Yorkshire players who don't have stands named after them. But hey, he still said that game in 2019 was more special at the moment. But maybe if this one leads to a win, maybe if he gets the Player of the Match award, maybe this one will be more special. I think he's been terrific in this game.
FPL asks, is this the most uplifting series of Test cricket to take place in England since 2005?
Really interesting question. I mean, I don't think it is, actually. But that's only because I think there have been lots of brilliant series. I really do. I thought that the 2015 series against New Zealand was fantastic. And then it led into a pretty super Ashes series. And actually, I thought those lockdown series were a lot of fun and terribly necessary for us as we all went mad. So, I mean, it's a really nice question, isn't it? It's a really nice tone to it because it's basically saying it has been a lot of fun. And it has. So yeah, you've got something there. But I think actually there have been quite a lot of pretty good ones. It's a good game.
And the final question comes from Azim Rafiq. He asks, out of all of the questions that could have been discussed by Sky Sports at Headingley, is the best one really whether it's appropriate to invite me to watch a cricket match?
So I saw this one come in. There was a context, to be fair, there was a context. They were talking about a paper review and they were talking about a story that had been in the paper during the week, I think it's in the Telegraph, about whether whether it was appropriate. I mean, I think the Telegraph very much thought it wasn't. That Azim Rafiq was invited to Lords as a guest. It did also say he was invited to the press box. That was by me. I invited him and Martin Darlow, the ECB chair, to the press box to show them around and stuff like that. Anyway, I was very surprised by the question. I was very surprised by the piece in the Telegraph, and I was disappointed, to be honest, by the tone and the framing of the question. See, the question could have been, is it right that this venue, which has been charged and will plead guilty, by the way, this club, is hosting a test match? Is it right that a pundit who has been charged is continuing to commentate? At least a pundit for the Telegraph. Probably haven't mentioned that. Those questions would have seemed more appetite, more appropriate than asking whether a victim of racial bullying, and by the way, it's not just my words. I know that Mark Butcher said in that clip that Azim was judge and jury. I think it is worth repeating to those who seem a little bit slow on the facts in that the Equality and Human Rights Commission decided that, actually. There was also an employment tribunal that sided with Azim. There's been a very long investigation by a team of lawyers in Leeds, which also sided that. The ECB and Yorkshire have apologised. So to diminish it, really, by saying Azim Rafiq is judge and jury, DCMS as well, by the way, parliamentary stuff, all these things that have happened. And again, the framing of the question was about Azim. I'm going to say it one more time. This is not just about Azim Rafiq. And to keep saying that it is diminishes the scale of the problem. This is not one man's war. It is just that he is the one brave enough to say it. There were many dozens of people who have come forward and reported racial abuse at Yorkshire. And in all the courts and all the tribunals so far, those complaints have been upheld to a large degree. We mustn't diminish that. And I'm afraid my view is that this is what institutional racism looks like. It is when the powers close forces to stop the little guy making any progress. It's when the institutions protect those in power. So, to ask the question, answer the question. I was very disappointed with that. Azim is not a perfect fellow. I no doubt he will be charged, and I've no doubt he should be charged, and I've no doubt he will plead and be found guilty. But I think we need to stop victim blaming. And let's remember, it's not just him who's claimed that he's a victim. The Employment Tribunal said it, the inquiry said it, DCMS said it, the Equality and Human Rights Commission has said it. It's getting quite frustrating that you keep having to remind people of this. It's almost, either subconsciously or whatever. It is becoming very frustrating. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So, well, listen, I'll be honest with you. I keep going for a second, if that's all right. I'm really tired. No, I do. No. It's just, it is becoming absolutely amazing that the tools of the broadcasting community and the newspapers are motivated by trying to discredit the victim rather than actually look at what went wrong and try and do things to protect it. An official at the ECB once said to me about Azim, he said, the thing is about Azim, I don't know why you're helping him so much. I've heard he's a bit of a shit bloke. His words. And I said, well, one, I don't think he is. I think he's a great guy, as it happens. A great guy with some baggage in his past. He's definitely made mistakes. But also, it wouldn't matter. This is literally what I said. It wouldn't matter if you ate a baby. It doesn't justify being racist. And that's the thing that people have got to realise. It doesn't matter what Azim has done. And it's not just about Azim. So, and the other thing is, the piece that I did, was it yesterday or the day before? It didn't even mention the words Azim. That word is not in the piece. It is not all about him. There are a lot of other people who have come forward and complained about racism. And I think we need to make excuses for this. And actually remember that he's a whistleblower.